Echeveria simulans Laguna Sanchez is a spectacular cultivar anyone can easily grow. It's a superb beginner Echeveria that does not seem to be troubled by a lot of issues many other Echeveria cultivars suffer from. There is not a lot of information out there on the origin of this plant, but it appears to be a mutation of Echeveria simulans, which is a native species found in Mexico. It may sometimes be referred to as Echeveria elegans variety simulans, however simulans is a separate species to elegans and quite a bit different. Laguna Sanchez forms a low rosette shape that can grow to approximately 13 cm in width and 10 in height. Clumps will eventually form, however rosettes can be solitary for quite some time before offsets appear. In ideal conditions, clump size, where offsets are left intact, can reach up to 20 cm in diameter. The leaves are quite interesting as they have almost see-through pale edges and a slight frill which seems to disappear in all the leaves. The tip is pointy, almost lace-like, and when the plant is stressed, it will slightly elongate, becoming more frilly along the edges. In the growing stage, the frill fades and the leaves get wider. The color changes through the seasons and can range from green-blue to a pinky orange. The leaves' edges are an off-white color and look beautiful when you look through them against the sun. More stressed plants will grow pale blue-gray with a hint of pink. The stress can come from the sun, temperature, lack of water or nutrients. A side note, stress will not necessarily hurt your plant. This Echeveria is a sun lover and will need a certain amount of sunlight to grow well. It will tolerate shade and filtered light outdoors, but it is likely to grow a bit leggy, stretched out, green and without the frill. Laguna Sanchez is not suitable to be grown indoors unless you have a massive sunny window, sunroom or growing lights. It's just not bright enough in an average home for pretty much the majority of succulents. It's more likely than not it would eventually die indoors. This succulent can be grown in pots as well as frost-free gardens. In the garden, it has to be planted where water doesn't pool after rain. Raised gardens or slopes are ideal. The best potting medium for succulents in pots is a good quality succulent potting mix. It should have the right pH, good drainage and will ensure your Echeveria grows well. In the garden, Laguna Sanchez will grow best if a bit of any potting mix is worked in with the soil to break it apart and help the thin roots spread. Dense hard soil can make it hard for them to grow. Unlike quite a few Echeveria, the Laguna Sanchez does not seem to be particularly bothered by overwatering, humidity and rain. This is why I'd recommend it to beginners. Not having to worry about watering and rain attracting fungal disease is a huge green flag. Having said that, you will need a good well-draining potting mix, a pot with a drainage hole and a sunny position if you're planning on leaving it out in the elements. During dry spells or when under cover, water when the potting mix has dried out. This will ensure you're not overwatering. Also, do not spray. Water well with a hose or a watering can. If you want a pristine, unspoiled farina, water by placing in a dish of water until the potting mix is saturated. Farina is the white coating on succulents that acts like a sunscreen but can get washed away a little in the rain or during overhead watering. I know some people like when the farina is perfect and this is the way to make it look spotless. Temperature-wise, Laguna Sanchez grows best in frost-free parts of the world but should cope during light frosts. When exposed to frost for longer periods, it can suffer frost burns. If snow and frost is normal during winter in your climate, it may be best to bring this succulent indoors for the duration. In summer, during heat waves, potted plants should be placed in shade or under shade cloth as they may suffer sunburn when in very hot direct sun. Laguna Sanchez can be propagated from leaves and cuttings. It should also grow from seed, but this propagation method can be unreliable and seeds can take a very long time to become a fully grown plant. Leaf propagation is quite reliable and my favorite way of propagating this Echeveria. The leaves have nearly 100% success rate and the leaf babies are easy to raise. All of these little babies have been grown from leaf and are going great. To pull leaves off, simply gently tuck to the side. You'll want the whole leaf to come away from the stalk without breaking it. Leaves can then be placed either straight on top of potting mix or left in a tray in a dry, bright spot until new growth and roots appear. After a few new leaves emerge, they can be potted up. Once potted up, you can start watering as well. New growth should appear within about 3 weeks of the leaf being pulled off. It's unlikely leaves will grow well during winter, especially if your climate is cold. It's always best to propagate leaves in spring or summer when not too hot. For more instant results, cuttings of offsets can be propagated easily. In my personal experience with this plant, offsets sometimes take a while, even a few years to grow. If you want to force heads to grow, you can behead the main rosette. I've separated the top here with a bit of fishing line. You can also use tooth floss. After doing any sort of chopping, leave the cuttings to dry for a day so the wound heals. This will prevent any diseases getting into the plant through the fresh cut. When the wound has dried up, pop the cutting in a pot. Once the roots have grown all over, the plant will be more resilient and can be transplanted into the garden or a bigger pot. Roots should appear within 2 to 3 weeks. Again, best time to propagate is spring and summer. But if you don't get frosts in winter, early autumn is good too. During heat waves, make sure the cuttings are shaded from super strong sun. For some reason, Echeveria Laguna Sanchez does not seem to attract many pests. Echeveria are usually a bit of a magnet for all sorts of annoying little buggers, but at least in my nursery they seem to leave this one alone. I would still advise to be vigilant about aphids, especially during flowering time, and mealybugs both between leaves and on roots. Echeveria also tend to attract slugs, snails, caterpillars and grasshoppers, so if you have bigger chunks missing, one of these is likely to be the culprit. I'm going to slow this down so we can all appreciate the beauty of these blooms. I absolutely adore the colors. Flowers grow on a tall stalk over the rosette and create an arch of pastel colors. Laguna Sanchez flowers at the end of winter through to spring for us, though this may vary depending on where in the world you are. If aphids ever do attack this plant, it's likely to be during flowering as they love the bloom, so do keep an eye. This Echeveria is a safe, non-toxic succulent to have around pets and little humans. Despite there being no toxic properties to this succulent, we do not recommend eating it. And that is all for today. I hope this video was useful, and if you'd like to add anything or ask a question, you can do so in the comments below. To learn more about succulents, hit the subscribe button or go to succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.